Welcome to Smack That Fact, your go-to channel for mind-blowing lists of interesting and fascinating facts. Today, we're diving deep into the dark and terrifying world of the Middle Ages to explore the most gruesome and horrifying ways people met their end. From torturous punishments to deadly childbirth, the medieval era was filled with unimaginable horrors. So, grab your seat and brace yourself for a chilling journey through the worst ways to die in medieval times. Viewer discretion is advised. Number 5. Childbirth. In medieval times, childbirth was a dangerous and life-threatening experience for women and child. Maternal mortality rates were alarmingly high, with many women losing their lives during labor. The absence of proper hygiene and skilled midwives added to the risks, making childbirth a dreaded event for many expectant mothers. Unfortunately, obstructed labor posed serious risks, and the methods to resolve it were often brutal. In some cases, the child's skull was cracked to save the mother but result in the child's death. Other times, pelvic bones were broken to save the child but at the expense of the mother's life. Infections, postpartum hemorrhage, and ruptured uteruses were common causes of maternal mortality. The absence of antibiotics and advanced medical interventions only heightened the danger faced by both the mother and the newborn. Tragically, childbirth-related deaths were a harsh reality for medieval women. The lack of proper prenatal care, coupled with unsanitary conditions and limited medical knowledge, made it a treacherous journey for expectant mothers. Number 4. Surgery and medical treatments. During the Middle Ages, medical treatments were often brutal and primitive. Amputations were performed using saws and other crude instruments, causing immense pain and suffering to the patient. Headaches were treated with trepanation, a horrifying procedure involving drilling a hole into the skull to supposedly relieve pressure from the brain. Hemorrhoids, another common ailment, were treated with hot cautery irons that were inserted into the rectum, causing excruciating pain and risking severe infections. Even more terrifying, kidney stones were extracted through a person's bladder using sharp instruments, a procedure that carried a high risk of complications and death. Survival rates for surgical patients were very low. Even minor surgeries could quickly turn deadly due to the lack of medical advancements and resources. With no effective pain relief, patients experienced the full horror of surgical procedures, often leading to traumatic and brutal deaths. These barbaric medical practices highlight the lack of understanding and advanced medical knowledge during the Middle Ages. Patients were subjected to agonizing and dangerous treatments with little hope of successful outcomes. It is a stark reminder of how far medical science and healthcare have progressed over the centuries, sparing us from the horrors endured by our ancestors. Number 3. Iron chair. The iron chair with spikes, a torture device used in the Middle Ages, was designed to inflict unimaginable pain and suffering upon its victims. The victim was bound to the chair, unable to move or escape. As the victim sat on the iron chair, the sharp points would pierce the flesh upon contact, causing severe injuries and excruciating pain. The spikes were strategically placed to target sensitive areas, such as the back, buttocks, and legs. Each movement or shift in position would worsen the agony, leaving the person in unbearable torment. The pain caused by the iron chair was beyond description. Victims would scream in agony, their bodies racked with pain and shock. Infections from the wounds were almost inevitable. The gruesome process was designed to break the spirit of the victim, forcing them to reveal information or confess to crimes, often leading to a slow and agonizing death. The use of such a brutal and inhumane device reflects the dark and barbaric nature of the Middle Ages, where torture was a common method of punishment and control. Number 2. The Black Death. The Black Death was a devastating epidemic that swept through Europe in the Middle Ages. Infected individuals suffered tremendously, and the disease caused terrifying symptoms. As the bacteria spread through flea bites, painful buboes, swollen and infected lymph nodes, developed, primarily in the groin, armpits, and neck. These buboes would often turn black, giving the plague its ominous name. The infected would experience high fever, chills, and extreme fatigue. The disease progressed rapidly, and victims would suffer from excruciating headaches and muscle aches. As the plague advanced, it led to vomiting and diarrhea, causing severe dehydration. The skin would develop dark patches and bruise-like marks, adding to the gruesome appearance of the afflicted. The plague spread rapidly, and communities were left in terror and chaos. Mass graves became common as the death toll soared. Families were torn apart, and the infected were often abandoned, left to die alone in agony. The sight of entire families succumbing to the plague was a horrifying reality during this dark period in history. As the plague spread, it caused widespread panic and fear. People lived in constant dread of contracting the deadly disease, unsure of how to protect themselves. The Black Death was not only a gruesome physical ordeal but also an emotionally devastating experience for those who witnessed the suffering and loss around them. Number 1. Being boiled alive. Death by boiling was a terrifying and gruesome method of execution used during the Middle Ages. The process involved submerging the victim in a large cauldron or pot filled with boiling water, oil or other liquid. As the victim was lowered into the boiling liquid, their skin would blister almost immediately. The boiling temperature would cause severe burns and damage to internal organs. The pain was unbearable, and the victim's screams and cries could be heard from afar. Death by boiling was not only agonizing but also slow and torturous. The boiling liquid would gradually take the victim's life, as they experienced shock, loss of consciousness, and eventually death. The prolonged suffering made this method of execution a horrifying and effective deterrent for those who witnessed such a brutal fate. The use of death by boiling highlights the brutal and cruel nature of punishment in the Middle Ages. It was often reserved for those deemed to have committed heinous crimes or considered enemies of the state. The fear of facing such a gruesome end was meant to instill terror and compliance in the population, enforcing the authority of those in power. And that was our top 5 worst ways to die in the Middle Ages. We hope this video shed light on the unimaginable horrors that our ancestors endured in the past. It remained us to be grateful for the advancements in justice and human rights that have shaped the world we live in today. A huge thank you to our incredible Patreon supporter Andrew for choosing the title of this video. Your support means the world to us, and we're grateful to have you as part of our community. Join us on Patreon and enjoy exclusive perks like a custom avatar to proudly use on YouTube or any other social media, early access, and the power to shape our future videos by selecting the titles you'd like us to explore, and much more. Thank you once again for your support. Don't forget to smack that like button, subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another video.